If you want to grow bigger goldies, the answer might not be what you think. Everyone's go-to when you look on the forums and stuff, I bet you've heard things like you need to feed them more, run more filtration. So let's just slow down and let me give you some possible tips that you can look at and think, maybe I should focus on these instead. So quick story, about 10, 15 years ago, I had this tank over there and I had a randa in it. And no matter what I did, I was thinking to myself, these fish just aren't growing how I'd expect them to grow. And then it wasn't until I got a new central heating system fitted in the house, and then I actually got a digital thermostat and temperature controls and stuff, and I could actually see the temperatures, that I realised what was going on. I'd always listened to the advice of goldfish, cold water fish, they don't need heaters in the tank. And when I looked at the house temperatures I was looking at, so what I found was I'd come in before I had the new central heating system, and the house temperature would be on like 14 degrees, which is far below what fancy goldfish deem as ideal. So it'd be on that. And then I'd come in, I'd put the oven on to cook tea, and then I'd whack the heating on. The heating on would be on full blast all evening. And I'd just rocket the temperatures up in the house, and then I'd feed them. An hour later, I'd turn the heating off and go to bed. So for like 6 hours, I was just blasting the tank with heat. And then when I got the new central heating system, I realised that there was this window of like 4 hours where I was blasting the whole house with heat, and the temps in the tank were probably rocketing up because the temperature was at like 14 degrees, and the living room temperature would be like 24 degrees for a few hours, and then about 11 o'clock at night I'd turn all heating off and the temperature in the house would plummet. So that's the first thing to think about: temperature. Are we getting the temps up to where the goldfish need them, or are we falling for that myth where, you know, we're saying the cold water fish, goldfish will survive at lower temperatures than most fish? That's true, but they're not necessarily cold water fish. I mean, all the big breeders of Japan, China, Thailand, Indonesia, all these places are warm climates. If you ask a carp fisherman whether he'd want to go to North Scotland or the south of France fishing, he's always going to pick the south of France because it's warmer there, the carp grow faster and they get bigger. And then we come on to feeding. This is another one. So I had a friend who was trying to grow a fancy goldfish, and he was dumping one big handful of food in a day. And it was just like one big thing. But goldfish digestion doesn't work like that. The grazers in the wild, they'll swim around, they'll eat like insects and stuff like that, and plant matter, algae, but they'll graze all day. So we need to mimic that natural environment. We need to, I know fancy goldfish aren't natural, but you know, the biology came from nature, from, you know, the carp, the wild carp. So I feed little and often. I've got a auto feeder here which drops pellets in twice a day. It only feeds twice a day, otherwise I'd ramp it up a bit. And then I'll feed some live foods or frozen foods, or I'm going to start doing steamed egg. I feed in veg. I'm feeding rapashi. So I'm giving all these different meals and different sources of nutrients every day. A third myth you've probably heard is you can't overfilter a fish tank. Now, I don't agree with that philosophy, because I believe you can overfilter a fish tank. There's just, you only need so much volume of filtration. I mean, mechanical filtration, the faster you can get everything out the water, the better. Chemical filtration, the faster you can get toxins out the water, the better. But real biological filtration, I believe you can. There's only so much volume you need to grow bacteria on, and you'll tell if you haven't got enough because you'll start getting like lots of biofilm in the tank where your bacteria are starting to coat the walls and stuff. Maybe then we could look at getting more. But I'll say, my friend, the one who was dumping handfuls of food in, his attitude was, well, I don't have to worry about how much I feed because I've got 2 canister filters on the tank, so they're pulling all the waste out dead fast. But the problem is you could probably get away with one of them canister filters, and then you've spent maybe 250 to 500 pound on this big massive canister filter, and you could have got yourself a water change. They call them pythons in America, and we have similar stuff over here. Make your water changes easier. I don't believe the term you can't overfilter, but I do believe the term that you can't over water change. Now that brings me on to the next thing. Water changes in the goldfish hobby. Water changes are completely different to the rest of the hobby. If you're listening to anyone else who keeps any other type of fish and you're following their water change advice, you're probably doing it wrong. I, on this tank, do at least 50% every other day or every third day, something like that. every 2 or 3 days, I'll do 50 to 80% water changes. So I'm pulling all that waste out before it starts accumulating. Also, carp release hormones into the water which stunt growth. Reportedly, I mean, I've seen evidence to suggest that this happens, and it might be a myth, might be an urban legend, but you know, if we're wrong, no big deal. But if we're right, then we need to deal with it. So that's my fourth thing: loads and loads of water changes. Now, I've always got the philosophy of keep it stupidly simple, and the reason why is I've seen loads of goldfish keepers over the years come up with these amazing ideas for making their own gel foods and picking dandelions in the wild and culturing all these live foods and everything's amazing, and I get that jealous because I'm like, oh my god, I wish I was treating my goldfish like that. What amazing husbandry. But then you find that they do it for 3 months and then they give up because it's overwhelming. So my philosophy is keep it stupidly simple. Rather than trying to slog buckets of water, get hoses, get it in a drain outside, in a rainwater drain, down your toilet or in a sink or in the bath. Just make it easy, drain it somewhere where you don't have to physically carry the water, and then fill it straight up from the tap via a hose. Just make everything as stupidly simple as you can. Don't overcomplicate the diet. Now, for me, at the moment, I'm looking at pellets. I'm feeding saki hikari, I'm feeding North Fin veggie pellets, and then I'm feeding bloodworm, brine shrimp frozen from the packet. I'm looking at steaming eggs. I'm looking at deshelling, boiling and deshelling peas. I'm just looking for pashy. I'm just trying to make a fantastic diet that's extremely easy to make. So I'm not trying to blitz and blend and marinate and mash my own DIY gel foods, because I know I'll probably do that for a week and then I'll get fed up of it and then I just stop doing it and then I start feeling guilty. So just make it stupidly simple. I know if I've got an hour spare, I can set a water change up and do it. I've timed it, so I know, so if I think to myself, right, I've got an hour spare, I'll water change instantly, automatically. So just to recap, we want a fantastic diet and we want to make it as simple as possible to get that diet in there. Stuff like loads of high quality pellets, rapashi, frozen or live foods. If you can do it simply, just don't overcomplicate it, keep it simple, and you'll keep doing it and then you'll have success. It's not about doing it once to perfection, it's about being able to do it again and again and again and again and again. That's what brings success. And then before we start feeding, we have to consider filtration. But are we over filtering? Could we do more water changes instead? If we're going to spend £250 on a second filter, why not buy a Python and make water change? Buy stuff that makes water changes more simple, because as they always say, prevention is better than cure. So are we better off just water changing? I'm not saying don't filter enough. Obviously we need adequate filtration, but over filtering. So I tend to keep my temperatures at 25 degrees while I'm trying to grow the fish out. That's 25 degrees Celsius. I think it's about 80, 82, something like that Fahrenheit. I'm not big on, I don't know Fahrenheit, but that's my second tip. And then obviously as the water temperatures go up, oxygen levels come down. So you might have to look at oxygenating the water. That's the key thing with goldfish. You need plenty of oxygen. So I've got my baffles, it falls in, the water falls into the baffle and it goes down a pipe with a hole in the top, a little hole in the top. So all that water is getting oxygenated as it goes down the pipe. And it crashes out the pipe into my sump, it's getting oxygenated again. And it goes over a baffle, gets oxygenated again. It goes over another baffle, it gets oxygenated again. So there's loads of surface area where oxygen can diffuse into the water, and there's loads of tumbling water where it can pull oxygen into the water. That's the second thing we need to think about: temps and oxygen. Third thing, like I say, is water changes. Are we filtering too much? Let's not over filter and underwater change. Let's make water changes first and filtration almost secondary to, we just need to get that ammonia to nitrate. But more importantly, we need to get nitrate out the system, and arguably them goldfish hormones and carp hormones, we need to get them out the system. These are how we're going to grow our goldfish faster. So that's my take on the whole situation. I hope you found what I'm saying helpful, or you can pick little bits of information out there and think, I'm going to try that, I'm going to add that to my method of keeping goldfish, and then hopefully it gives you a bit more success keeping goldfish. It's stuff that I've thought about over the years and that I've talked about on forums and stuff. So hopefully there's stuff in there that you can take away and you can apply to your goldfish keeping.